Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising on Valentines. This is a day for many, many centuries that has been commemorated to romantic love and love of the world, love of nature, and has been that one day in the year where we consecrate what is perhaps the supreme virtue in many religious traditions, and that is love of ourselves, love of each other, and love of the larger ecosystem and universe in which we find ourselves. Today, we're going to be exploring the Black Madonna, who has a very profound notion of love that is very mysterious and profound and contrarian to what many of us think of normally as love. And I want, in the spirit of the Black Madonna, to open today with an invitation to love Vladimir Putin. As you all know, we are at war with Russia. We're also developing a war with China. We're in the most dangerous moment in our lifetime, certainly since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, where the world came within a hair's length of going to nuclear war. We're at that same juncture again. And if you think about it, in its most abstract, it's because we have been cultivated to hate the Russians and hate Vladimir Putin. That's all you see and hear about in our mass media. If you think for a moment what you know or think you know about Putin, he's an autocrat, he's corrupt, he's cruel, he's greedy, he suppresses human rights. He is antagonistic against the United States. He has committed all kinds of atrocities. He engaged in an unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. He's a monster and is commonly referred to as a Hitler-like figure who has to be stopped at all costs. That's what we're told about Vladimir Putin. For the next few minutes, as someone who's lived in Russia and knows Russian history probably as well as most people, who for many, many years, well over a decade, dedicated his life to fostering better relations between Russia and the United States and Russia and the West, I'd like to just go into the mind of Vladimir Putin. And I would welcome people to just put whatever you think you know about Putin, just push the pause button. Because I can tell you, as a matter of fact, virtually everything we're told about the Russians and about Putin is not true and is being manufactured in the same way we manufactured information and perceptions about Saddam Hussein in Iraq, who was another great Hitler figure, the same way we did it in Vietnam against Ho Chi Minh and the North Vietnamese. The truth is actually the opposite of what we're being told. So for the next just few minutes, I'm not going to take very much time because I'll be talking a lot more about this in our upcoming summit on Ukraine, but because it's Valentine's, just pause. If you're Vladimir Putin today, sitting in the Kremlin in Moscow, what are you thinking? What are you aware of? What is every Russian aware of? What he's aware of and what the Russians are aware of is that they're under an attack by the United States and NATO that since the 1990s, in violation of the agreement with Gorbachev not to move NATO to the east, on the basis of which the Russians gave up Eastern Europe. But instead of honoring that agreement, the United States has taken NATO very aggressively to the east and now controls all of Europe. The United States is now the suzerain of the entire landmass of Europe until the borders of Russia. And they've subsumed everyone into a common military alliance dominated by the United States. They're now in the process of taking Ukraine. That Putin and the Russians said back in 2008, when President Bush Jr. announced that the United States was going to take Ukraine next, that that was an existential threat. So if you're Vladimir Putin and you see a major empire coming at you in a hostile, militarily aggressive way, what gets activated in your psyche? What is getting activated in the Russian psyche is that on 3 major occasions since Napoleon in 1812, Hitler in 1941, and then now the Americans since 2014 and the coup that they transacted in Ukraine to put in an anti-Russian, pro-American leader. The Russians have been seeing this great military alliance coming right at them with the intent to cut Russia off from Crimea and to dismember Russia. The neoconservatives who have been driving the expansion of NATO to the east have made it clear for the last 30 years that the ultimate intent of the United States in moving east is to cut Russia off from Crimea so it doesn't have access to the Black Sea and to dismember Russia. Vladimir Putin knows that. Every Russian in the military and in their parliament knows that. And so if you look at a map, what Putin has done is simply secure Russian access to the Black Sea and Crimea, which Russia has to have if it's going to maintain its status as a great power. The United States also knows that. NATO knows that. The Germans know that. And that's why the battle royal is taking shape in Ukraine. This is not about the Ukrainians fighting the Russians needing our support. This is the United States and NATO having seized now all of Eastern Europe and is now going after Russia. Vladimir Putin, remember, be empathetic for just this moment on Valentines. Vladimir Putin has a choice, and he knows it, and so do the Russians. If he surrenders Ukraine and the land bridge to Crimea, he goes down in history as Putin the Great failure because he lost Crimea against enemy attack. If he prevails against the Americans and secures Russian access to Crimea and the Black Sea, he goes down as Putin the Great in Russian history. There's a lot more than I can I can say and will be saying during our summit. But I wanted to just take this few moments and offer a little nugget of empathy for Vladimir Putin on Valentines. He's against probably the greatest enemy that's ever assaulted Russia. He's hunkered down like they did in the Battle of Stalingrad, like they did at the Battle of Leningrad, and under Napoleon, the Battle of Moscow. They've just seen the Germans who sent their thousands of tanks against the Russians in the 1940s. Now send tanks to be used to fight them again. And I would point out that it's the same company that built tanks for the Nazis is now building the Leopard tanks that are being now sent to Ukraine. And if you're a Russian, what that is triggering in your psyche is a trauma of unimaginable proportions. So if you think of what's going on right now, this is Russia's last stand to preserve the integrity of its territory against an enemy invasion. And if you can just understand that, empathy will emerge in your heart, and an understanding that we're going to war for the most senseless reason imaginable. And that what we should be doing is embracing the Russians, embracing the Chinese, embracing the great powers of the world to deal with the real issue confronting us, and that is runaway climate change. So empathy, love, compassion in this moment may seem an impossibility, and there may be everything in your mind saying it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. But if you can entertain just for today on Valentine's, that what I'm saying is true, and that if you put yourself in the other person's moccasins, as the Native Americans would say, you walk a mile in their moccasins, your whole view of the world changes. So that's just a little Valentine's I love you to the Russians, and I love you to Vladimir Putin, which I know seems heretical to say, but is probably the most important posture we can embrace in this time of escalating war. So thank you, everyone. We want to now turn to the Black Madonna. And what I want to say as we segue is at the heart of the power of the Black Madonna is that her domain is the darkness. Unlike Mary, the Mother of God, the Virgin Mary, which is of the light. Many goddesses are of the light. But the Black Madonna begins in the darkness. That's her domain. She's that feminine essence that takes all of the shadow, uses the shadow for a great redemptive purpose. And if you can honor empathy for Vladimir Putin in the face of everything that we're told about him, you'll be honoring the work and the presence and the mystery and the profundity of the Black Madonna. We are delighted today to have one of our doctoral students, Anistacia Barber, who I've gotten recently to know, who has studied the Black Madonna for decades and compiled a extraordinary library of photos and images. So I want to welcome Anistacia to our session today. She's going to start with a short video meditation about the Black Madonna, and then will give us a collage of images on this day when we open our hearts to each other in love. So Anistacia, welcome to Humanity Rising.
Hello, thank you for having me. Delighted.
You're welcome. So you just open up your video, make a presentation, and when you're done, I'll circle back.
Okay, fantastic. So sorry, hold on. Right.
I am the mother of the night, the great dark depth, the bringer of light. All that was, that is, that ever shall be. All that could or should can only come from me. High above and far below, I am the ebb. I am the flow. The stars in the sky, the fish in the sea, every seed, every stone, every critter is me. I am the center, the beginning, the end. I am without and I am within. I am the lair, the nest, and the den. I am the earth, the water, and the wind. The horned cow, the many-tittied sow, the queen bee, the mother tree, the pregnant womb, the grain seed broom, the candle's wick, the matrix, and you, woman, are my daughters. Praise and love to the mothers of the world. Praise and love to the sisters of the world. Praise and love to the women of the world. Praise and love to my daughters. To the women in the fields who plow and plant and grind the mill wheels. To those who spin and weave at looms, who make the mats, the cloth, and the brooms. To those who sew the royal robes, and those who pierce the child's earlobes. To those who rub and oil and braid, to all the queens and all the maids. Praise and love to my daughters. Praise to those who nurse young at their breasts, who carry on without due rest, then rise up early as the dawn to mend the fence and mow the lawn. To those who fill and stir the pot, to those who clean and bake and mop, to those who have and who have not, praise and love to my daughters. Praise and love to those who seek, to those who know, and those who speak, to those who look with tender eyes, whose visions penetrate the lies, to those who sing and those who cry, to those who fight for right and die, to those who live to ripe old age, to great grandma, the family sage, praise and love to my daughters. To those unborn and yet to come, we urge you on with song and hum. from other worlds and through birth water. Come forth, child, beloved daughter. Praise and love to the mothers of the world. Praise and love to the sisters of the world. Praise and love to the women of the world. Praise and love to my daughters. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay, she's Louisa Tish, what a delightful person. It's so it was such an honor to meet with her. I'll start from the beginning then. My name's Anistacia Barber, and about 30 years ago in 1991, two friends were starting a documentary film project about the Black Madonna, and they invited me to join them because I was a film student and also a master's degree student in San Francisco. And I was living in San Francisco, and they had told me about their project, and I thought, how fascinating, Black Madonna. I had never heard of it. I did grow up in New Mexico, and so I was definitely a devotee of the Virgin of Guadalupe, so that had an impact on me. And I was walking down the street, down Haight Street in San Francisco, and popped into a bookstore, and a book jumped out at me right off the shelf, The Cult of the Black Virgin by Ian Begg. And I thought, gosh, I think this would probably help my friends on their project. So I mailed it to them, and they were living in Washington State. And within a few days, I got a phone call. It's like, oh, it's a sign. We want you to join our team and come with us to Europe to document this this mystery. And so I joined their team, and I went with them to France, Spain, Italy, Germany, we did our work, and Mexico, over about 4 years. So I'll start, and then as we go along, I'll kind of share more about the story. Here's me in France with some gypsies in the south of France. It was such a lovely time, but and we saw this already. Oops, excuse. So the stained glass, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, if you've been to Europe, in the cathedrals, the stained glass is just magnificent. And this one in particular, I just loved because it had the triangle symbology at the top. And you'll notice too, when you see a lot of these Madonnas, where they have the triangular shaped dress on them that just goes from their neck just straight out. And a lot of people are like, oh, patriarchy covering up their bodies, but if you look at it from another perspective, in that the triangle is a ancient symbol of divine feminine energy, then it maybe takes on a new meaning. So just loved this stained glass. And this one as well, the Sacred Heart. And I'm just going to show you some of my favorite pictures that I was able to get, and just want to share with you, bear in mind that this was 30 years ago, before digital cameras, and so you weren't able to check to see if the shot you got was good, and keep trying until you got them. And also, in a lot of the churches and cathedrals, they are extremely dark and lit only by candles. And then also sometimes taking photographs, it was frowned upon. And so it was a bit of a guerrilla effort at times. And so some of the photos you'll see aren't perfect, and people have been able to get, better photos with the digital technology, but a lot of these are very lovely, and so I want to share them with you. Let's see. This is Notre Dame de la Noire in Captrat, France. The bulk of the photos I'm going to show you are from France, because that is where the largest concentration of the Madonnas are. And you'll see a lot of different styles. Some are wood, some are polychrome, some are even made of metal, or at least their thrones are metal. You'll notice a lot of different materials that they're made of. Here's a lovely one. And also just a little backstory as we go along. We did start this project in 1991, and then we, being young and naive, we quickly came to understand, like, what we were trying to do was, like, who is she? What does she stand for? Is she Eve? Is she Magdalene? Is she Isis? And the more that you dig into it, the more that you come to understand that it's a bit like trying to make a movie about who is God. It's very elusive, very mysterious, and it depends on your perspective, and it depends, like, each statue maybe has a different origin, and it's very complicated, and it's very deep, and perhaps to me, I again, like Jim was saying, I'm not an expert on Black Madonnas, and I've been looking at this and studying this for, like he said, for decades, and I'm definitely not an expert. But what I've come to realize is that, to me, they seem like she is marking a spot where the energies of the earth are powerful, in that you can come, and she beckons you with her large hands. A lot of times she has extremely large hands. It's like a beckoning to come and quiet your mind, quiet your body, and just focus on the deep, darkest recesses of your inner self and see what you can find there. So I'll just continue on here. This is in Lyon, France. And if you'll notice, a lot of the gowns and the draperies, or it was a special honor by the women of the village to be chosen to create the wardrobe, and a lot of times they change the clothes depending on the holiday or the saint day. There's some of them I don't know the names of the Madonnas, unfortunately. So if I'm not certain of the name, it's not written underneath. Ultimately, this project never came to fruition. Very unfortunately, one of the film partners suffered some health issues, and was not able to, she was the owner of the video footage, and she just was not able to complete the project. And so the footage just was hidden away for decades, and so the film did not get made. But the photographs I do have, and I'm delighted to share with you. If you'll notice this one, I love how her face is so dark, that you're left to go within yourself in contemplation. And here is the Madonna from Marseille, France. Again, you'll see an example of, on the left is my photograph using film, and then on the right is another photograph that I have permission to use with more detail, that you can see how lovely she is. And let's see. There's another from Lyon, very high up, difficult to photograph with the bright light above her. This is a Madonna that is not known by many. She was unearthed when we were in France. We happened upon, she's just in her own little chapel. She's not in a cathedral. And she's from La Lizole, France. And some of the people that we spoke with said that she had been hidden away for decades and decades, and that the neighbors found that she had been hidden away by whoever was caretaking her, and they brought her out, and the town banded together to build a chapel for her. Her face seems damaged, and her eye, you can see, is cracked, so she must have been damaged at a certain point. And on the right is the full size of her. This lovely gem, painted gold. This beautiful Madonna Maymac with the turban. A lot of times you'll see this as a certain style with the turban headdress, and some people will say that maybe these ones with this type of headwear were brought back from Northern Africa during the Crusades, or Moorish lands, perhaps. No one's been able to say for sure. It's difficult because these are artifacts in Catholic churches. It's that kind of in between place of, is it art history, is it religious history? And then the churches a lot of times won't allow access for closer examinations of the statues, for fear of attracting perhaps the wrong sorts of people that are not, that don't have the Catholic Church's best interest at heart. There's a lot of fear around that. This is a statue that is very famous, that most people are familiar with, Rocamadour, France. And interestingly, she is one that really, when I first laid eyes on her, she actually spoke to me like loud and clear, right in my heart. It was just a direct voice of the mother speaking to me and directing me in a time when I really needed some advice. And interestingly, I've spoken to 2 other women that had almost identical experience with this Black Madonna, and almost the same messages. So perhaps each Madonna is channeling the energy of where she's located to convey specific messages. I'm not sure, but that was my experience, and it's very powerful. It's up on this huge hill, or you have to really, if you want to see her, you really have to hike up, and well worth it. She's gorgeous. Dame de Thoré. This one, they've had problems when we were there. They told us they had trouble with theft, and so they had put her very high up on this pedestal, to keep her out of reach of people, and the church was locked. We had to find a shopkeeper just down the street had the key and was able to let us in. But unfortunately, a lot of these Madonnas are being stolen, and so they're either locked away and only brought out on special occasions, or so there's a big concern with the art theft, which is very unfortunate. This is an example of a Madonna that she used to be Black Madonna, and then she was painted white. And they found that a lot of times once they're painted white, they lose the sort of cultish following. But there's concern again that they want to keep maybe unsavory worshipers away from their churches, and so they go to extreme measures and whiten them, which is sadly the case at Chartres Cathedral as well. This is a Black Madonna from Italy. This is Our Lady of Good Death in Clermont-Ferrand. Extremely dark, lovely. You'll notice the large hands that I was speaking about before, like beckoning you closer, to inviting you to go within and really search your soul for what darkness is in there, what things should you let go of and fix within yourself. Here's another, this one, her nose is broken off and not been restored. So this is interesting. I love how the baby's head is just popping out from the side. I would love to know what her body looks like beneath the robes. This lovely lady is my favorite. Look at her beautiful smile. Look at the sweetest mother you could ever want. Very comforting, very lovely. Unfortunately, she is kept behind in a plexiglass box. You can see the little squares on the either side of the child. This one too, I felt that she was calling to me to be let out of the box. I wish I could have done something, but just a divine. And she's in a location with a sacred spring associated with miraculous healings and rejuvenating people's health, and even bringing dead babies back to life long enough for them to be baptized before and then to fall back into death. And she was found, the village was building wanted to build a church, and the builder threw his hammer on the ground, and he decided that's how he would decide where to build the church. And where the hammer landed is where this Madonna was found. And so they put her there. This is a photo from a procession in Tarascon, France, Notre Dame du Chateau. Here's another shot. Usually she's carried by men, surrounded by men, and women and children are often just on the periphery, and it's the men who are the ones that bring her forth and carry her and get to be close to her. Here is another Notre Dame du Port, Clermont-Ferrand. It's an area in France in the south of Paris that has a cluster of Black Madonnas. Here's the same procession. You can see it's the huge deal. Everyone comes out. It's a big festival, but yes, you'll notice almost everyone is a man. Here's another shot. I love the scouts play special roles, and everyone in the community comes out, and they're sort of like the guards on the periphery, making sure that the people who carry the Madonnas don't have obstacles in their way. This is another Notre Dame du Puy 3. Another shot. This is a very interesting Madonna in that she is called the Black Madonna, but her skin color is not black. But if you ask around in the town, they'll, well, why is she called black? And usually the answer is, well, just because she is. And in 1960, they did give her a refinishing, and they did paint her a paler color than she was originally. She was more of a brownish color, and then they did make her more pale. And when they were refurbishing her, they found that in her back, behind her, in this area behind her back, they found that had an opening, a little door, and so they were led to believe that perhaps she was going to be a holder of relics originally, but oh, pardon me, but there were no relics inside, but they believe she was originally designed to hold relics. And here's another shot from their annual procession. And here's a short video for you. She is she has strong devotion from gypsies, and she is she's a stop on the road to the Compostela.
Anastasia, we cannot hear anything for some reason. I cannot hear. Should we be hearing something?
Notre Père, qui es des cieux, que ton nom soit sanctifié, que ton règne vienne, que ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel.
À ceux qui nous ont offert et ne nous sauvez pas de la tentation.
Et que vous salue Marie, pleine
We go. So I did see some comments about what I said earlier about the men carrying her. It was just an observation. It was not a judgment whatsoever. I'm not making any commentary about patriarchy or any other thing. It was just an observation. So here's some more pictures. Someone also asked if I'd be showing pictures of Chartres, and no, I'm not. I have unfortunately not been there, and I have a trip planned for the future, but I've not been to Chartres. Some stained glass featuring Black Madonna. There's another Notre Dame de Val-Fleury in Loire, France. This one depicts the miraculous discovery of the statue. Here are some Black Madonnas that are in a museum in France. And now this is not a Black Madonna per se. This is Saint Sarah from the Church of Notre Dame de la Mer in Saint-Marie de la Mer, France. And she is said to be the servant girl who came across the Mediterranean from France with Mary Magdalene. And but she is kept in the crypt in the church, and she is has a very devoted following, especially of gypsies. And she has been accredited with many miraculous healings and also with granting fertility to many women. This is the reliquary box of Mary of Salome. And the relics are kept up in the ceiling of the church, and they're brought down through like a pulley system once a year. And here is where this is part of the celebration when they bring her out once a year and they bring her to the sea. And these are the Camargue horsemen that you see, and they accompany her. And here is her being carried with her robes. She has so many layers and layers and layers of robes. A lot of times you'll see in the crypt, people will be pulling up all of her layers to be able to touch her leg or her foot. And there's probably at least 20 layers at times. Here is the Virgin of Guadalupe, the actual tilma in Mexico City. This is the same, just a different perspective. Same from even further inside the basilica. This is the new, they have the old basilica, but it's sinking. And so they've built a brand new one next to the old one. And this is inside the new one. And this is out in the plaza on the feast day, which is December 12th. This was in approximately 1994. Here's more activity on the plaza. They have a meditation garden called the Jardin del Tepeyac, and it is the hill where Juan Diego met the Virgin of Guadalupe. She appeared to him and told him to tell the bishop Zumarraga that she was here and that she desired a cathedral to be built. Here's another perspective. And this is Coatlicue, the Aztec mother goddess who many people associate as one face of Guadalupe, in that she is able to be a shapeshifter and present herself in any appearance that that serves the purpose of her to make people comfortable, bring comfort, and to do what she needs to do. A lot of people have associated her with the goddess Kali. And here is a short video.
The Feast of Guadalupe in Mexico City, a Mesoamerican marathon of praise and celebration. Tens of thousands of the faithful flock to the Basilica of Guadalupe in prayer, perhaps to glimpse the original image of her embedded upon Juan Diego's tilma. Many indigenous tribes dance for days on end, worshiping the ancient goddess Coatlicue on the very same ground as their Aztec forefathers, centuries before the Spanish arrival to the Americas. In the Catholic tradition, devotees reach the basilica on hands and knees, expressing their humility and love for Guadalupe. Sarah Lacali, patron saint of the Gypsies. On the coast of southern France, a small dark girl is revered in a nebulous legend of her own. She is said to have come from Egypt in a boat with no oars or sails, in the company of several significant biblical characters, arriving in the year 42 AD. Kept deep within a crypt beneath the floors of a church, each May Sarah is carried in a sea of song to the water, as a blessing for all her followers. A lively mass of gypsies predominate the pilgrimage, as it is their most important journey on the European continent.
It's just a short clip of some of the footage. As I was saying earlier, my friend who is the videographer with the health issues, she unfortunately passed away a year ago, and her family entrusted me with all of the footage. So I've been going through all of it, digitizing it. Some of it was damaged, and so I've just been doing my best to organize it, go through it, and then just make it available, not as a documentary, but just as complete short videos. And I'll share the link. There's a YouTube channel featuring so far all of the interviews that we conducted over the years. So I'll share that at the end. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it so much. And like I said, it's been a long adventure. I tried to actually step away from the topic for many years, and I was called back and luckily found Ubiquity University and found a group of like-minded people who are also interested, and I've been called back, and so I've especially being named the caretaker of all this footage, and so I'm happy to be able to share it finally after it's been hidden away for the past 25 years. So if you'd like to see some of the interviews and more video footage, I do add regularly, and here's the YouTube channel, and here's a list of the interviews that we were able to conduct. And these are all from the early 90s. And so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Anastasia. That was very illuminating. You know, it's striking to me. You might close off your screen share. There we go. It's striking to me that, you know, you were just going along minding your own business, walk into a bookstore, and kind of a book falls out in front of you. And the next thing you know, you're on your way to Europe with women documentarians and videographers to explore the Black Madonna. And then, typical of a Black Madonna story, things go subterranean.
Yes.
For many, many years. And then all of a sudden you're entrusted to curate this archive. And here we are on Humanity Rising, and you find Ubiquity University, and you enter into a community that is dedicated to the Black Madonna. So your life has really embodied some of the deeper aspects of the Black Madonna. And I would wonder, just in the first instance, from a sort of a personal, psycho-spiritual point of view, how have you interacted with the Black Madonna through these photographs and experiences and interactions with the people on the team, and now you're the curator of it? Say more about how the Black Madonna has appeared to you and how you have evolved your understanding of her depth.
Oh, what a great question. Well, yes, it's been a journey, and what if I go back in time, even before the Black Madonna, I was talking about my devotion to Guadalupe. I was raised a Catholic in New Mexico, and I I was always sort of a rebel in the church, too much to my mother's consternation.
Good for you.
When it was time to receive my first communion, where all of the other little girls wore their white wedding dress types, I wanted to wear a turquoise blue dress. And she was like, "Oh God, no, please, why are you doing that?" It's like, because I want to be like Mary, you know? And they always made her sit on the side of the church that had the big Virgin of Guadalupe painting, rather than the side that had the big scary crucifix. I left the church at 16, again to her consternation, but I took Guadalupe with me, and she's always been with me. And I realized it's in the darkest hours, in the most desperate times, when I feel her comfort. Like you said, she's not the big, bright, airy, Virgin Mary. It's the mother of sorrows that, and so if you, it's like she gives you the strength to face the ugliness inside you, like the filth eater of the cauliflower, of like, I'm flawed. I have jealousy, I have greed, I have I've done things I'm not proud of, and it's her that comes to you and goes, let's dig deeper. Let's don't just shine it off and push you back out there. Let's dig into the ugliness and the sorrow and the sadness. And so I'm here a story again with the Guadalupe. I was in a point in my life where it seemed that the Black Madonna project was canceled. My friend with the footage pulled away. She had some health issues, pulled away, and I was like, well, it's over. There was some deaths and all kinds of things around that. And then I was in a place in my life, I don't know what to do with myself. I feel lost, I feel lonely, I feel sad. I had my boyfriend at the time had just died in a terrible car wreck. And it was Guadalupe's feast day, December 12th, 1997, and I was just destroyed. I was just did not know what to do. And so I lit my candle and I just got on my knees and humbled myself and just like, please make me whole. Make me, I need light in this darkness. Please show me light and show me what I'm supposed to do and what I need to do. I need help, and I'm lost. And I said my prayers, I cried, and then like an hour later, I got a phone call. I had just moved into this little kind of dingy apartment, basement apartment. Hour later, I got a call. And I was like, who's calling me? Nobody even has my phone number. And it was an old friend that I just love dearly. And he called me and he's just like, what are you doing? I just called your mom, because back then no one had cell phones. So, and we moved around a lot. So if you wanted to stay in touch with somebody, you gave them your parents' phone number, so they could always find you. And he calls like, I just talked to your mom. She told me you moved to Denver. I just moved to Denver. What are you doing? And I was like, nothing. I'm sad. Come over. And he came over and we fell madly in love. And he's my husband now, and we have 2 kids together. And we've been married. Today's our anniversary. We've been married for 25 years.
Fantastic.
So and then again, I thought, well, so I just focused on Guadalupe, and I wrote my master's thesis on the Virgin of Guadalupe and her role in liberation theology. And I stayed with that. And then again, I just thought, well, that Black Madonna part is just kind of done. And then when COVID hit, we had a horrible time. My father died, my husband's father died. My friend whose whose footage this is, she died, and our 5-year-old goddaughter died in a house fire. So again, in this time of just really intense sadness and like hopeless, felt like hopeless kind of. And then she comes again, saying prayers like, help me, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And then I get the call from my friend's family, we want you to be the guardians of this footage. And I found Ubiquity, I found this Black Madonna course, and I wanted to do a PhD since 30 years ago. And I'm like, and it all just comes together through these, it's like, seems like tragic and darkness, and then the mother just comes through and just like, here, daughter, I got you. And so powerful presence in my life. And so I just have been working. I feel like these interviews with these scholars and devotees, and these photographs and procession footage just needs to be shared. I'm not making a movie. I'm not putting it all into like, here's who she is. And I've seen websites where people say, oh, for $5,000, come to my workshop and I'll tell you exactly who she is. And it's ludicrous, honestly. That's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And so what I'm doing is just sharing this footage for everyone to have their own journey and take from it what is impactful to them.
You're a very wise woman, Anastasia. To understand the most fundamental truth about the Black Madonna is that she cannot be bound, she cannot be defined. There is no come my way and I'll tell you all the secrets.
Yeah.
And Cuff Ferguson is making a point that underscores what you just said, that I think is worth just bringing into the conversation. He says that in his humble view, the Black Madonna may be humanity's way of physically representing what he has come to call the dark unknown archetype, from which all that is vibrationally dreamed comes into being.
Yes.
It's in some ways the black hole. It's the center of the galaxy. It's the place where neither light nor dark reside, but out of which all dark and all light emerge.
Right. She's the potential.
Yeah.
She's the potential of everything. She's the space before creation.
Yeah. And therefore, she contains all the shadow content, our tragedies and our sorrows and our cruelties and all the things that cause the suffering in the world, because that's all part of the great pleroma. And therefore, as you indicate in your own story, she's the one that traverses both sides, the light and the dark dimensions.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's worth just pointing out, is one of the reasons why we go to Chartres every year, everyone. And Anastasia, if you haven't been, you're more than welcome to join us, because in Chartres, I think there's about 300 Black Madonnas in Europe, right? Or is that just in France? I'm not sure about
there's around 450 documented in the world. But in France, there's about 200, and The bulk of them are concentrated right in the kind of in the middle, just below Paris.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, when you stand before the Black Madonna, you really have a sense that you're going into the depths of the mystery, and the fact that they keep painting some of them.
Yes.
They just did that in Chartres. So I wanted to return to this point that you were making about they was all carried by men. I understand that you weren't wanting to make any judgment, but I think it's worth noting that the Black Madonna has arisen inside, you know, a systematically patriarchal church, and they've never quite been comfortable with her and never quite known what to do with her. And it's also worth noting that this didn't emerge from the ecclesiastical structure. The Black Madonnas, as you know, emerged from the people.
Right.
She was a phenomenon that just rose up with such undeniable power that the ecclesiastical patriarchal structures had to accommodate her. But there's always been an uneasy alliance between the two. So, like, for example, in Chartres, just I think it was 3-4 years ago, right when the Black Madonna of the pillar was getting darker and darker and more just lusciously sacred, they painted her and they made her look like a Nordic white blonde, you know, Caucasian, and it caused huge consternation among the pilgrims that went to Chartres, because they did it overnight. They didn't tell anybody. They just did it. And so
Right.
people went into the cathedral the next day and were completely shocked at what they just did. And of course, they never comment, no apology. It just is what it is. But any comment you want to make on that contradiction, I would say, of the Black Madonna inside the ecclesiastical structures?
Well, yes, it's interesting because what I found out recently is that a lot of the major cathedrals in France were built in alignment with the constellation Virgo. So if you look on a map, the major cathedrals that, and almost all of them have or used to have labyrinths inside, are all exactly aligned with the constellation Virgo. And they all have and the bulk of them have Black Madonnas. And so to me, it seems like there was, and I'm just still learning about this, but that there's an association that maybe predates the church, and the locations were marked and the cathedrals built for well, that's hard a more sub rosa purposes of training people, or it's like, let all those who have eyes to see and those with ears to hear, where it's not like some big advertisement, but a deeper, more Gnostic knowledge that was bigger, that or deeper, that it wasn't just for the masses, and they buried it with, or hid it with, symbols and the Black Madonna and the shapes of every arch and every stained glass, and that they it seemed to me, just based on like conversations I had with different priests and different people in the towns, is that they're trying to find a fine balance between the wishes of the people and the and the tenets of the church and what the Pope wants, like now no Madonna is even allowed to be crowned without permission from the Pope and without a representative from the Vatican in presence when they do it. And so there's a lot more control over
Yeah.
what's happening. And it seems like there's a fear of it, but there's a fear of embracing it too much or in a fear of rejecting it too much. And so there seems to be steps, like you said, like the painting of it. It's like, oh, well, it's just from candle smoke. She's not really like that. So we just cleaned her.
Mhm.
It's like, well, why aren't her clothes black? And why is, why isn't her hair black if it's just from candle smoke? And so there seems to be they're walking a fine balance, trying to
Yeah.
without harming the what's the right word, the enthusiasm of the community, but keeping they they
Keeping
say some of the
control.
Black Madonnas attract pagans and attract unsavory types to their church that they don't want. And so they're really walking a fine balance between what's Catholic and what's ancient esoteric
Well,
knowledge.
another dimension to this, what you're saying is so true, profoundly sad at one level. But we had a session on Humanity Rising yesterday, convened by woman Joyce Scott Hope, and she brought Black women together. And one of them was a medical doctor, and she was pointing out that every human being tracks, they're basically through the female chromosome, the X chromosome. And that since we all originated from Africa, the great mother of us all is a Black woman.
Right.
And that needs to be honored in terms of our deepest awareness of mother, of Madonna, was Black. And it's also worth pointing out that every single one of the 5 major religious traditions, if you think Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and if you want to add Taoism, all were founded by people of color. The Caucasians have not founded any deep spirituality. They inherited it.
Wow.
And so that the Black Madonna in some ways represents the deepest ancestral memory, as Dr. Ferguson was pointing out, of the ground before creation, out of which all creation comes, a great darkness, but also the lineage of humanity back to Africa and the understanding of our spiritual tradition coming from those parts of the world where people of color dominated and were present, and the current struggles around even painting the Black Madonna and having to have the emissary of the Pope be there when she's crowned is an indicator of the deeply racial consciousness that emanates out of the Caucasian race, and which has so profoundly influenced our spirituality. So when we think of the Black Madonna, she's profoundly spiritual, but she's also very political.
Right.
And very ethnic, but has such an undeniable power that she cannot be denied. She can only be contained and only fitfully by the power structures.
Right. Right. That's so true. It's so true. I'm just reading a few of these comments. And one I wanted to say to Linda Gap, thank you for correcting me on my calling the Romani people gypsies. Duly noted. Thank you for that. And Also, just wanted to add that somebody else said something about idol worship, and perhaps it seems as though it's idol worship and to some perhaps it is. To me and what I saw and in my own experience, it's more of a symbol that triggers a reflection, internal reflection of change and growth and becoming a better person. And it's not like, oh, this statue has magical powers. It's more as like, what does it symbolize? What does it trigger within the person to become better, to grow, to just to be better?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, it just to remind everyone that this notion of idol was a sort of a Judeo-Christian notion that evolved. But as Anastasia, you're saying, the ancients understood depictions of beauty, particularly divine beauty, as geometric formulations that actually increase our vibrational frequency. You know, we experience this every year in Chartres. You go into Chartres Cathedral, one of the most beautiful masterpieces ever designed by the mind of humankind. And your soul just begins to elevate. And you experience what Plato called the enlargement of the soul. So when you're in the face of the Black Madonna, even this session, just all those collages of the beauty of the sacred feminine have an effect on our soul. They have an effect on our hearts. They change our hormonal secretions. They improve our emotional equilibrium. Those depictions of beauty actually, as you say, have a triggering effect. And then when you fall down on your knees before the Black Madonna, you're actually doing something more deep than you can possibly imagine, to the degree that you open yourself to that higher frequency.
Right. Well said. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Anastasia. And in the few minutes we have left, I would like you, as a devotee of the Black Madonna and someone who fell in love with your husband through her mysterious workings, just close us out with just anything you want to say about love. Talk to us about love.
Oh, okay.
What have you learned?
Well, I came from an upbringing experience where I didn't have very great examples of love or true love or what it could be like. And so when I found it with my husband, I could hardly believe it, and it kind of came in baby steps, because I'm like, I don't know what it's supposed to be like. Is this really what it's like? And then I realized that having someone in your life who really is it's your best friend, and they support you through not just who I am now, but as I grow and as he grows, and we allow each other to change and be bigger and better, and not holding on to a vision of like, well, that's not who you were when I fell in love with you, or that, so this felt like this awesome respect he and I have for each other and our communications, where we commit to higher principles of respect and respect for our children, and respect for our parents, and and so we commit to each other to these to principles of spiritual behavior, and we hold each other accountable for behaving in ways that are respectful to each other. And really it's a lot to do with this respect and support. Sometimes he's down and I'm up, sometimes I'm up and he's down, and we're just always there. And it's again, it's like, if we have issues or if the one person has something, it's like, am I here to be, are we doing support or are we doing solutions? And knowing which one is which in the moment, can really help resolve a lot of issues. And when they go, oh, I just need support, or like, God, I really need solutions, so there's a different mode that you get in with your best friend when it's one or the other. And that has helped us a lot. And we just know that we're meant to be, and we were meant to have these kids. And we just thank each other every day for being loving. And we always talk kindly to each other, and it makes a world of difference. And we committed to being a good
Beautiful.
example of a couple
Beautiful.
to our kids, and our kids have turned out so good. They're both, got into their dream college. They're doing their dream careers. They're kind to each other. It really comes full circle. And when we deliberately decided, let's do it different than our parents did it. Let's really commit to
Yes.
doing it different. Like right now, right here, before we even have a child, let's commit. Let's do it different. The buck stops here with the bad dad and the absent parent thing, or the distant. And we've done it, and we love each other dearly. Feel so blessed.
Fantastic, Anastacia. What a beautiful Valentine's gift you've been. And it's on your anniversary. So
Yay,
extend
Roki
your
even got
love.
me I even got a new ring.
Oh, isn't that beautiful? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
you.
It's always
Thank you.
wonderful to be in the presence of someone who radiates love.
Aw, thank you.
So thank you.
Back
Thank
at
you
that.
so much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's Valentine's, everyone. Happy Valentine's to you all. That'll bring our session to a close. You're all welcome to the after session chat. Anastacia, you would be more than welcome if you can stay for a few more minutes. You'll see the link in the chat box that Stan just put in. And I just want all of us to just take in what Anastacia just shared with us about the Black Madonna and the deep mysteries, and about the humility of love and this deep fortitude that she manifested with her partner, that the buck stops here. And we're just going to love each other. That's a beautiful Valentine's gift for us all, Anastacia. Much love and many blessings.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.